My guest today is Joshua Barron, the founder of SB Legal, a premier criminal defense firm based in Utah that handles everything from complex federal investigations to high-stakes felony trials. Josh has built a reputation not just for his legal acumen, but for a unique philosophical approach to representation that focuses on finding the unique gifts or sparks of people he represents despite their mistakes. Today, we are going deep into the evolution of criminal defender from being a prosecutor who thought defense lawyers were bad people to spending $35,000 a month on Google ads and ultimately realizing that the simple lunch invitation is a more powerful growth engine. We'll discuss the 3-habit framework for referrals and why faking compassion is the fastest way to burn out in the legal profession. Josh, welcome to the Growth Switch.
Excited to be here. That was a great intro. You did your homework. You've been very thorough. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. I want to start with your days as a prosecutor. What was your point of view when you first started, and what was the moment when you decided to make a career change?
Yeah, I became a prosecutor because I was working at a job in Park City and I hated it with all of my heart and I just needed to try something different. And so I didn't feel like a great call to prosecution. I was willing to take any job to get out of that job. But then I came and I learned a ton. I really enjoyed it. I did my first trial the first week that I was there. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no business doing a jury trial that week, but I really enjoyed it. I felt kind of a connection to it. And so I did it for a year, really enjoyed it. But the other prosecutors would often call me a defense attorney when they'd see my plea bargain offers. They'd be like, Josh is just another defense lawyer. And so that got me thinking. And at first I was kind of offended. But then I remember there was one trial, I think it was my last jury trial. I was rooting for the other side. I thought we didn't have the right evidence. And I asked for permission to dismiss the case and it was denied. So I went and did the trial. But the whole time I was getting my butt kicked the entire time. The defense attorney had all the cards and I was just losing. And I was thinking if I win this case, that says something bad about the system. And I did not win, thank goodness. But it just made me think if I'm rooting for the other side, maybe it's time to find out if I am a defense attorney.
That's interesting. And sounds like emotionally it was very clear for you, but thinking back, was it ever a question of should you persevere and stay with this career, or is it just super clear that that's not where you want to be and that was the time to change?
I think I could have done it. I have a lot of respect and admiration for prosecutors. If you go into a criminal courtroom and you see the judge, the defense lawyer, and the prosecutor has the most power. It feels like it's the judge, but really it's the prosecutor because 95+% of cases get resolved with a plea bargain, and that requires persuading the prosecutor. So prosecutors have a lot of power. They have a lot of influence and ability to do good. So I think I could have done it, but I think I was really drawn to having my own business. And I met my law partner at the time. His name is Yosef Sharifi. I met him as a prosecutor. We were both prosecuting for Salt Lake City, and we left together to start our own little business. And I was really excited to have my own business. So that really drew me to it. But I think there could be another version of my life where I was a career prosecutor, and I think I could be plenty happy doing that too.
That's interesting. What was the shift in your perspective about the defense attorneys from how you've seen them before and sometimes being referenced as bad people to when you started your business and you made that switch? What were some of the things that you discovered as a business owner or maybe emotionally as well once you made that switch?
Yeah, I remember that when I was in law school, a defense lawyer came and spoke to us about criminal defense. And I thought, I get in concept that we need criminal defense lawyers, especially like public defenders. But being a private criminal defense lawyer who earns their money defending people who've been accused of crimes, I was like, there's got to be a better way to make money. And so I was pretty dismissive of it when he came and spoke to us. But then, as a prosecutor, one of the things that I noticed was it was ethically and emotionally complex. I often had to kind of juggle the desires of the victim in a crime against the needs of the state of Utah, who I sort of represented, but I couldn't speak to. I couldn't call the state of Utah and ask what they wanted with the rules my boss had made. Like there were all these kind of constituencies that I had to satisfy at once. And finding the ethical and morally correct path was more difficult than I realized. There's a lot of
Mhm.
complexity there. Again, it's not bad. It's just the kind of the nature of that job. On the defense side, it's much simpler and cleaner. Like, I have one client. My duty is to that client. It's not to the state of Utah. It's to the person that I'm representing. And so kind of that simplicity really appeals to me. I really enjoy that. So I've enjoyed it, but again, I don't have anything against prosecutors. A good prosecutor is so valuable and they can do so much good.
And I think we're fortunate that you had a partner to make that switch, because sometimes changing the career, especially starting a business, can be quite a daunting journey if you're doing it alone.
Yeah.
Your partner, did you share those views, or have you had different perspectives on making that shift and then how you went into actually practicing beyond that point?
Yeah. I mean, it was a little bit different. But we worked very, very closely together. We shared an office. We had lunch every day. We talked through all of our cases. We listened to each other's consultations. It was an amazing partnership, and I learned so much from my law partner. He retired in 2017. I wish he hadn't. I wish we were still practicing together. But I learned a lot from him. I don't think he had the same kind of concerns about complexity, but we would talk through what's the right way to approach this case or this client. Yeah, I mean, we had to kind of feel our way sometimes. Sometimes we had to ask kind of unofficial mentors. That there's this one guy that he had his office in the same building as us, and he was just like my hero. I just thought he was amazing. I still do. He's an amazing lawyer. And I would want to ask him, how do I do this for one of my cases? But I was too embarrassed to ask him. So I'd ask him to lunch and pretend to ask about his kids and stuff. And then I'd be like, by the way, and he'd say, you can just call me and ask about your cases. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. So he was wonderful. His name was Jeremy Delacino. He's an amazing attorney, and he taught me so much.
I think it's valuable, isn't it, to have that support network when you start, and that you do have those mentors, somebody who's open and giving advice. And it sounds like you had a good mentor there. What would be your advice to somebody who starting a solo practice and they don't have that? Do you think there is a conscious way of going about and finding those mentors for the smaller and younger firms?
So, I mean, I've only practiced in Utah, but Utah has an association called the Utah Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. It's kind of like a bar section, kind of a voluntary, just, club of criminal defense lawyers. And one of the coolest things about it is there's this email list that you can send questions to. And honestly, there are people who send the dumbest questions on this list. And other, really experienced lawyers are really generous and really kind, and they'll respond all day to the dumbest questions you've ever seen. And so I use it. I ask questions on it. Occasionally I answer. I should probably answer more often. But so my guess is that in a lot of places there's something similar to that, where there's people who are willing to share what they learned. They're not hiding anything. And it's wonderful. There's this one woman named Annie Talafiero. She's just fantastic. She's one of the smartest lawyers I've ever met, and she's extremely generous. I just recently had a brief that was due, and it was kind of a confusing issue, and it's been changing a lot in the appellate courts. And she posted something about it on the email list, and I responded and said, "Hey, could you send me that briefing?" And she sent me like 22 documents within like 20 minutes that basically did all the work for me for that motion. It was like she saved me so much time. The quality was way better than it would have been otherwise. And I didn't pay her anything. She was just being kind. So I think that exists. I hope it exists in a lot of places. In Utah, it does. I'm very fortunate because of it.
Hopefully it is universal, for sure. Can you think of maybe a question that you yourself were embarrassed to ask at the time, but then you've seen other colleagues as well asking the same question, and you sort of see that repeat pattern?
Well, one, because immigration law is changing a lot right now, and a lot of my criminal clients have to go to the jail to get their fingerprints taken after a case begins, and it's a process called book and release. It's not supposed to result in an arrest. But lately, there have been immigration officials that go to the jail and arrest people during the book and release process. So I recently had a client get deported because of that. It was a tragedy. It was upsetting. And I posted to the list saying, does anybody have ideas on how, to avoid that process if somebody needs, for immigration reasons or other reasons, just can't do it. And I got a couple of good responses. And then yesterday, another lawyer I know saw that I had sent that message and called me and asked me for some more specific advice on how to make it happen in a specific city.
Mm-hmm.
So another one though, when I was pretty new to my practice, I had this hearing that kind of conflicted with another hearing, but I thought I could do them both. I was in
Mm-hmm.
the first hearing and I realized it was going to take too long and I wasn't going to make it to the second hearing. So I asked the court for permission to reschedule the hearing. And I thought it was simple and it was fine. But the judge got really, really upset. And
Mm-hmm.
he ordered me to come to his court in person to explain why he shouldn't hold me in contempt and send me to jail. And so I posted something about it on our email list, like, what do I do? I've never had this happen before. He told me to bring a toothbrush, meaning like, you're not going to sleep at home this night. Like you're going to be in jail.
Right.
So I posted about it and this other lawyer just volunteered and said, like, we can't let judges do that. Like you're just trying to advocate for your clients. And so he came and represented me without charging me and
Mm-hmm.
kept me out of jail and smoothed things over with that judge. And I mean, and so I've told him, because I see him in court a lot, he's a great lawyer too. And I tell him, Randy, you can cut in front of me. You know, if we're both waiting to call a case, like you can always cut in front of me. And he's really kind and he won't do it. But I feel like eternally grateful to him that he was kind enough to do that, because I wonder how traumatizing it would have been to go to jail in my first year of practice. But maybe it would have been good for marketing. Like maybe I could have put it in my in my pitch to my clients. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't
Yeah.
have to go to jail.
Yeah, no, that would have been quite a story. When we were talking earlier, you spoke about, the level of empathy and understanding you have towards the clients that you represent and finding something unique, their spark, their gift, whenever
Mm.
you work with people that even if they did, unthinkable mistakes. How did you arrive to that? Was that something that you had from the beginning, or did that develop sort of with your practice?
It's developed. I mean, because I in law school, I never really, did sales conversations with potential clients. In my first job out of law school, I didn't really have any client contact. Then I was a prosecutor. I didn't have any private clients. And so the sales process was kind of new to me when we started our practice. And it became clear to me pretty quickly that clients have a really difficult time of telling the difference between the quality of different lawyers. It's just a difficult
Hmm.
thing to know. It's probably true with most experts. Like it's hard for me to tell the difference between one doctor and another. Which one's better? I don't really know. And so we kind of stumbled on this idea that potential clients can't tell how good of a lawyer you are, but they can tell how they feel when they're with you. And that's probably a bigger influence on whether they hire us, is how they feel when they're with us. So that was really helpful. And so initially we just tried to, do things to calm their anxiety, to just to be, empathetic and connect with them as best we could. One of the obstacles though to that is it's very easy to think about myself.
Mm.
Like, if I met with a great client yesterday and there's a temptation to think, oh, I really need this client. I hope they pay me this much money. Here's what I would do with the money if they hired me. And that is a distraction. It's natural. Like I don't feel guilty about having those thoughts, but they are an obstacle to me being able to feel empathy for the client and to be able to serve them in that initial consultation. So kind of the first kind of step in our process when we're thinking about, having a compassionate consultation with a new client, the first idea is to focus on the client, not on yourself.
Hmm.
So when I notice my thoughts coming back to myself, thinking about what I need and what I want, what I'm going to do after work, again, it's natural. I try not to be too angry with myself that I have those thoughts, but I try to notice it and redirect those thoughts to the client. What can I do for the client? What is the client feeling? What are they dealing with? How can I serve them? And so that's the first part. And then the second part is to, like you said, to try to, we know that people like people who like them. We know that people buy from people they like,
Hmm.
and one of the challenges in my job that's probably not unique to criminal lawyers, but it's a lot of lawyers are probably in this situation. A lot of my clients have done horrible things. And, I don't want to minimize or ignore the mistakes they've made. But I also know that I'm going to be more effective in advocating for them and feel a closer connection to them and be a more compelling lawyer to them if I like them. So how am I going to like
Hmm.
somebody who's done something that I could never really see myself doing? And what we've started trying to do, and I've really enjoyed it. I think it's improved the quality and the connection in those consultations, is just kind of a 3-step process. Number one, we look for a gift that they have. We look for, some strength that they have that they've shown. Second, we choose to focus on that and not on the mistakes that they've made. Again, we're not going to forget it or ignore it, but when we have a chance to focus on their strength instead of on one of their mistakes, we're going to choose to focus on their strength. And then the last thing that we do is we try to show it to the client. We try to verbalize it and articulate it for the client so that they know how we see them, and hopefully they can choose to see themselves in that way instead of seeing themselves as defined by their mistake. So like an example would be if I have a client who's charged with DUI and he feels really guilty about the DUI and it's going to jeopardize his job. I've had lots and lots of clients say, I made this mistake. I got a DUI. I'm so worried about how this is going to affect my kids, how it's going to affect my wife, my family. And so I want our strategy to be focused on that. I want to be able to keep my job if at all possible. I'd be willing to pay higher fines, go to more classes, even do more jail time if I could keep my job. And so again, I have this option. So first I try to look for their gift. And to me, the gift in that, brief story is this person's a really caring provider to his family, to his kids and to his wife. And so I want to notice that. And then I want to focus on it. So instead of saying this guy committed maybe the crime of DUI, or he drank too much and drive, or he put people at risk, I could choose to focus on that. Or I can choose to focus on the fact that he's a great, caring, compassionate provider. And then I want to tell that to the client. I want to say, hey, I've noticed that when you've talked about this, you haven't been focused on the consequences to you. You've said you're willing to sacrifice, pay bigger fines, go to jail even to protect your family and to take care of them. I really admire that. I'm a parent. I'm a husband. It's really important to me to be able to provide for my family. I can really identify that with that. And that identity, your identity as a provider, that is going to be the North Star in this case. We are going to make every decision we make in this case, we're going to run through the question of how is this going to impact your ability to provide for your family. And so that's, I admire that you're willing and able to focus on that. And that's going to be what I focus on throughout this case to get you the best possible outcome. And I've found that when we do that, it can't be fake. I can't pretend to admire something about them.
Right.
Be dishonest. And I think a lot of times people can feel it and it's damaging to the person who is being manipulative or dishonest. This isn't a way to manipulate them. It's a way to hopefully give them a way to heal through the criminal case instead of just kind of getting to the end of it and being kind of the same person they were at the beginning.
From my perspective, it's curious to hear your thoughts on, you articulated quite well how you position and the checklist that you go through. How significant is your client's sincerity in that equation? So if you can see the good in them, but the way maybe the client is communicating, they're being, not forthcoming, something you are able to see that they're caring, but the way they're presenting is not completely transparent or honest, would that change sort of the equation for you in a way, whether you take them as a client in the first place and then how you work with them?
I mean, there are some clients that are not representable. There's some that because of their communication style or because of their expectations or the way they treat me, I'm just not going to work with this person. So there are some for sure. But I mean, something that I struggle with is black and white thinking. I have a tendency to think that somebody is either good or bad. And as I age and hopefully mature and kind of get a little bit more understanding, I'm starting to see everyone has a gift. The worst person you can think of has a gift, has some spark, And so even if at the time, it's very common for my clients in the first meeting to be pretty dishonest and to minimize what they did and to not really understand it. And a lot of times that changes as we work together, not necessarily because we work together. It's just kind of the nature of the criminal case that I'm going to see the actual evidence, not their version of the evidence. So occasionally it can be a little bit of an obstacle, but I think that a lot of times, even with somebody who maybe isn't ready to admit the truth about what they've done, there's still that unique and positive thing that we can build off of. Have you heard of this thing called the fundamental attribution error? Have you ever heard of that?
I think so, but please explain.
So it's this idea that when we see other people do something, we attribute the action to their character. So if I see somebody shoplift, I see them and I think that is a thief and a bad person. But when I see myself do something, I say, I am a blank person, but I am a good person, but I made a bad choice.
Or the
Like
circumstances.
right. So we don't attribute one isolated action to our entire character. We tend to be a little bit less hard on ourselves and harder on other people. And so that client that comes and maybe is being dishonest about what happened or minimizing, there's a tendency to say, this is a minimizer, a dishonest person. Whereas if we did the same thing, we might think, I'm a good person and I'm a realistic person, but that day I was having a bad day and I didn't do that well. And I think I try to just notice that that's a mistake that I fall into as much as anyone. And
Hmm.
instead of saying this is who they are, just say that's the choice they're making today, and tomorrow they can make a different choice. And hopefully they choose to do that.
Certainly. And if I had to guess, that outlook on how you work with the clients probably affected your personal life and your other relationship, because not just with the clients, with everybody, I presume you take the same perspective in the way how you interact with people.
I try. I try. Actually, yeah, I mean, I hope this is a helpful story, but I'm really religious and active in my church. And for about a year, I was doing this assignment where I volunteered to work at this temple.
Hmm.
And a lot of times it would be like a 4-hour shift on a Saturday morning. It's kind of a big commitment. And a lot of times I would have to work the whole 4-hour shift with this one other person. And he was kind of an unpleasant person. And he'd be kind of critical of me and kind of critical of other people that he saw working during that time. And it wasn't every time, but when it was my turn to work with him, I would kind of dread it and kind of think like,
Hmm.
ugh, this is going to be tough. But so one day I knew it was my turn to work with him and I was dreading it a little bit. And I was thinking about kind of a similar thought. And I thought, this guy probably has some talent or gift that I have not identified yet. So like, what if instead of being frustrated with him for this whole shift, what if I looked for his great thing? And so I decided consciously to try to do that. And we were working together and he was kind of being annoying in his normal way. And then he went to work with one of the people that was visiting and he came back and he said, that person just radiates goodness. That is such a good person. And I had to stop what we were doing and tell that person, I can tell you are a good person. And I said out loud, I said like, wow, what
Hmm.
a gift to have those eyes, to be able to see that. And he
Hmm.
was like, oh, I'd never thought about that as a gift. And it really kind of transformed that shift. Unfortunately, he was annoying the next time we worked together. I had to focus on the good part, like consciously choose
Right.
to. So, I mean, it didn't like make him into like a better person overnight or anything like that. But yeah, I think sometimes we have the option to focus on the negative or the positive, and choosing to focus on the positive can be a way to hopefully help other people lift their vision of themselves. I know that when people notice and point out my weaknesses, it tends to be discouraging. I tend to
Hmm.
work less hard. But when somebody says, hey man, you're so good at blank, that tends to be kind of inspiring and motivating. And I think that's true with our clients and with all of our other relationships too.
100%. And I think it's important what you said, that it's a choice. It's not something that should be happening passively. Whenever you interact with people, it's a choice how you react, what you tell to them, how you see them, and how you react in their commentary. You mentioned earlier that some of your colleagues, they don't make the choice and they try to pretend that they're compassionate without really feeling that way. And because of that, there is a lot of fatigue and a lot of burnout. Do you maybe want to talk about your observations of other lawyers that didn't have that viewpoint of finding the gifts in people?
Mm. You're a great interviewer, Alex. Like you've got great questions and
Thank you.
man, you're keeping track of a lot of information. Yeah. So my sister is a social worker. She works with
Hmm.
homeless people in Salt Lake. She's a saint. She's wonderful. She's amazing. And a big issue in the social work community and in all helping professions is burnout. Like it can be taxing to try to help people and to work with people in these difficult moments. Sometimes they don't treat us well. There's challenges in helping people. So she went to this training recently where the presenter argued that compassion fatigue is not correctly framed. That
Hmm.
compassion fatigue isn't real. It's not to say that burnout's not real. Stress isn't real. Of course they are. But it's actually not compassion fatigue. And the presenter's argument was compassion is not fatiguing. Compassion is energizing. It's enlightening. It's expanding. What's fatiguing is faking compassion. When I'm trying to portray a version of myself that's not sincere, it takes a lot of energy to remember to do it and to remember why I'm doing it and how to do it and keep consistent everything that I've said. And so again, I think a lot of us instinctively know we are more likely to be hired by someone if they think we like them. And so
Mhm.
rather than liking them, we try to pretend we like them. And again, it's natural and it's intuitive, but it's exhausting. It's probably not very effective. And, it's just not sustainable in the long term. It's one of the reasons we might have some of the burnout issues we do in the law. And so I think a better approach is, instead of saying, well, I'm going to fake compassion for this person so that they hire me, well, let's just cultivate the actual thing. Let's just actually have compassion for them. And
Mhm.
for a long time, I think, again, I had that thought, but I didn't really know how. And thinking about this idea that everyone has a talent, everyone has a gift, and I can choose to focus on it and identify it and verbalize it, has helped me cultivate the actual compassion instead of faking it. And I'm as guilty as anyone of, thinking, well, okay, I'm going to match their tone. That's how they'll know I'm compassionate.
Mhm.
I'm going to, tell this story, and kind of faking it. And it takes so dang much energy. And so, yeah, I think that finding the more sincere version is a gift to the client, but it's also a gift to the practitioner. You're going to be so much happier. We know that connectedness and relatedness to other people is one of the best predictors of job satisfaction. And so, yeah, let's connect with our clients in a sincere, compassionate way instead of a sort of forced fake way. Let's not be used car salesmen. Let's
Mhm.
be kind ministers to these people.
You had your personal experience when you understood it, and you obviously practiced that yourself. How do you train that in your colleagues?
We're learning to do that. I don't know that we're there yet.
Mm.
I think that we're actually hiring an intake screening person right now.
Mhm.
And I'm in charge of training them, and that's something I've got to train them on. But we had an experience. This was, I think, pre-COVID, so it's been a few years now. But at the time, I was really busy with court hearings. I was in court so much, and there was almost no video court at the time. So I was driving all over the place and going to court a lot. And so I wasn't in the office with my staff very often. But one day I had something get canceled, and I was sitting in my office doing my work for longer than I normally would. And I could hear my paralegal right outside my door doing calls, calling clients and responding, doing the normal stuff that he does. And I could hear how he was talking to the clients on the phone,
Mhm.
and he was doing it wrong. And he was using the wrong tone. And I didn't know that we had a tone that we were going for until I heard the wrong one. And I had to go out and be like, this isn't your fault. We never told you what the tone is, but the tone you're using, it's not going to work. We cannot use that tone. So that was a training and a teaching moment. And again, it reflects more on my failure to anticipate that and train it than it is, he was willing to use whatever tone we wanted. But I think
Mhm.
that the challenge, what I was hearing is, there was a little bit of like kind of superiority and condescension in
Mm.
his tone. And I think it came from his kind of feeling of like, this is how experts talk. This is how doctors talk to patients.
Mhm.
And so again, I don't think it was malicious, but that's not the tone we use. The tone we use needs to be much warmer. It needs to validate the client's experience more. Like, we need to say, like, so like an example is, clients will call sometimes and say, I'm really frustrated that my hearing got rescheduled. This isn't important to you guys. You guys let it be rescheduled. I want this to be over. I want to get it done fast. Why are you
Mhm.
doing this slowly? And it's tempting to say, hey, I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. It's going to take how long it's take. Don't bug me about this. Like, I'm very tempted to say that.
Right.
And this paralegal didn't say it that aggressively, but he was kind
Mhm.
of like, well, we know what we're doing. And so, and I think that there was a missed step there where he could have said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that you're feeling this way, that you're feeling so anxious and stressed out about this case. I mean, tell me more about that. How is this affecting you? Well, I can't sleep, and I'm being cranky with my wife, and I'm not doing a good job. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I've never had this specific kind of charge or anything like that, but I can imagine that having that, it's taking all of your energy and all. Yeah. Okay. Let me explain to you kind of how the rhythm of these cases work, but we're going to do everything we can to not increase that stress that you're feeling. And it's totally valid that you're feeling it, and we want to help you with it. And, again, I had never trained him that he needed to do that. So I shouldn't have expected it.
I think as you're growing, there are a lot of situations like this that come up that might be hard to anticipate. But as you, like you said, you heard something in terms of tonality and like, this is not how we should be doing, then it becomes a talking point. Have you ever also experienced the point that whether it's, the scheduling or something else, that you need to educate your clients before, another one of those arises where it's that they're worried about the scheduling or something else? You can preemptively educate them to be better clients and also be less stressed about the process. Do you have any examples there?
Yeah, it comes up a lot. A magic phrase that we didn't use for years and I try to use in every consultation is, let me tell you the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a tendency, as you probably noticed in this conversation, to talk in long blocks of text, where I'll just say, here's this, and I'll give them way, way too much information. I forget how complicated it is and how difficult it is to hear. So we try to say, let me tell you the next steps. And then we try to tell them 3 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Not because those are all the steps that are left in the case, but like, it just feels like that's the most that they can probably handle in one bite. So I'll say, okay, okay, I'm going to talk to my wife and we're going to think about hiring you, but like, how's that going to work? Okay, well, let me tell you what the next steps would be. Once you make the payment, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to file a notice with the court that we're representing you. We're going to make sure they don't issue a warrant on your behalf, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't get worse. Second, we're going to request all the prosecution's evidence so that we have their police reports, videos, everything that they have. And then third, we're going to call the prosecutor to see kind of where they are so we can start to see how far do we need to get them to move. Does that make sense? Are those helpful? Like, do you have questions about any of those steps? So instead of saying, well, there's going to be a preliminary hearing in 6 months and a trial is going to look like this, I'm just giving them the next few steps so they can envision that a little bit better. And a lot of times they'll say, okay, so when is that next hearing going to be? Yeah, it's going to be in about 6 weeks. Okay. So, and it just helps them visualize it. And then they're not calling the next day saying, well, why isn't this dismissed yet? We've kind of given them some idea of how long the next stage is going to take.
Makes the information more digestible, because certainly in many areas of law and other professional services, because we are subject matter experts, we have the tendency to overshare and over explain, and it can be confusing to the clients and sometimes colleagues. Josh, so it's interesting that you said the phrase about the next steps. Do you also have maybe a phrases or mental notes of things not to do that over time, whether yourself or in your associates, when you spotted something else and you also made a checklist, specifically those are things not to do?
Yes. One that comes to mind is it's very old sales advice, but it's good sales advice. Do not sell features, sell benefits. When I first started, I had kind of this standard deal I would tell clients. So if it was a DUI, I would say, I used to be a DUI prosecutor for Salt Lake City. I've been to the same training that Highway Patrol has been to, that the Utah State Police has been to for DUI detection.
Mm-hmm.
I know what they have to do, and I can tell if they've done it right or wrong. I was like, this is genius. This is amazing. Everyone's going to hire me. It's so good. Like, the same training as the police. No one responded to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, no one was like, man, I talked to my wife and I told her that you've got the same training as the police. 0 people. And what I realized over time was like that was all gibberish to them. They assume every lawyer has that. They can't tell the difference. So I was selling a feature that they don't care about. A better approach is to tell a story about someone that I've helped who, either has similar case as this client or had a similar outcome that they needed or a similar concern about the case. So it's much better to say, like, you're concerned about keeping your job. Let me tell you about somebody that I just worked with who was charged with this same crime, and he was worried he was going to lose his job. We were able to change the name of the charge to this other name, and he kept his job and was able to provide for his family. That helps the client visualize the benefit of working with me. If I work with Josh, there's a real chance I can keep my job, provide for my family. I can visualize that. I have another example of someone he's helped. And that's way better than saying, let me tell you about one of my credentials. Let me tell you about how many trials I've done. Okay. Does every lawyer? I don't know. It's not very helpful to them. So we kind of had, one of my mantras is don't sell features, don't list features. And another one is always tell a story before you quote the price.
Mm-hmm.
And I love a good story. I think it makes it much more memorable and easy to visualize for the client.
I think that's super valuable advice to a lot of lawyers, and definitely incorporating story and actually the benefit serves clients in a better way because they see themselves, they can resonate with it, they can fully understand it. Because certification and other things, well, it's all the noise to them. What's been when you first started going to those early days? What was the best way for you, and what was the actual way how you got your first 10 clients when it was day one for you?
Yeah. So when we were still prosecuting, we were kind of talking to some of the defense lawyers on the other side that were kind of thinking about leaving and starting our own firm. And one was really kind of generous and said, if I was starting my own firm today, what I would do is I would send a solicitation letter to everyone who got charges filed against them. Here's the database where you can get that information, and here's the letter that I sent.
Hmm.
Can you believe that? He showed us his marketing letter, knowing
Hmm.
we were going to be direct competitors and that we were going to plagiarize his letter. Like, it was very generous
Right.
act by that person. So our first many more than 10 clients came from those letters. We'd send the letters out. I would have almost no work during the day. I'd be like playing video games, but every day at like 2:30, I'd stop what I was doing and I would stuff, 100 or 200 envelopes with these letters
Hmm.
and send them out. So that was the first way. The second way, maybe 4 to 6 months in, we started doing Google ads, and it was early days of AdWords. Initially, it was like, this is amazing. The margins were just so much better. We weren't competing on price. It was awesome. But it's an auction problem. From about 2010 to 2020, we did that. So 10, 11 years. And ended up spending a lot of money on AdWords. Again, getting a return, and I feel grateful for it. But we could see that every month it was more expensive, more
Hmm.
competitive. The margins shrunk every month, every month. And so, starting in about 2017, we really started to consciously build referral relationships and to measure our client experience using Net Promoter Score.
Hmm.
And so now, probably 80% of our clients come from either referrals from former clients or referrals from other attorneys. And
Hmm.
then the other 20% is like a mix of, like, they say, I found you on Google, even though we don't spend any money on Google ads. We don't do search engine optimization. So there's this other 20% that I don't even know. Maybe they're
Hmm.
referred to us too. I'm not even really sure. But yeah, the huge majority of our cases come either from former clients or from other attorneys. And the former clients piece is a big surprise to me. I never expected that it could be that much, because I thought that my criminal clients would be embarrassed to refer friends to us.
Hmm.
And some probably are, but there's a significant amount that are, they did a DUI with us. A friend gets a serious felony charge. They say, I don't know, call this guy. And a lot of times they hire me.
I think a lot of that also goes back to the way how you work with your clients and the fact that you find genuine, something positive, a gift in them. They also sense it, and that's why they're less embarrassed and they can recommend. For a lot of lawyers, when they think about referrals, especially if it's 80% plus of business, they tend to think that referrals is something passive. It either happens or it doesn't happen. You have a different way of thinking about referrals. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. And again, we think a little bit differently about referrals from former clients and referrals from other lawyers. They're kind of two separate bins in my mind.
Hmm.
So the best way to encourage referrals from former clients is to think about Net Promoter Score, which is a one-question survey that just says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or a family member? We did a Net Promoter Score survey when we started thinking about referrals. So again, this was like 2017. We did a Net Promoter Score survey, and I'd never done one before. I didn't really know what the benchmarks were. And my
Hmm.
paralegal ran it, and she gave it to me, and the result was like 11. And I was like, oh, 11 out of 10? That sounds amazing. And she was like backing out of my office slowly because she didn't want to tell me. It's a really bad Net Promoter Score. It's comparable to like a cable television provider in Utah. Everybody hates their cable provider, but they don't switch because they don't have a better option. That was my clients. They hated me, but they didn't have a better option, so they stayed. So the way we improved Net Promoter Score was, stuff like this, having better connection with them, addressing their anxiety and stress more often, explaining next steps, having a better tone. Anyway, doing all those things that we talked about. In terms of our referrals from other lawyers, it's It's transformed my practice. I love it so much. Net Promoter Score is important for that as well, because if another attorney refers you a client and then that client goes back to the referring attorney and complains about you, they're not going to refer to you anymore. One of my friends calls it a one strike and you're out rule. Like you don't get that luxury. You have to deliver a great experience. So Net Promoter Score is important there too. But in terms of the relationship with other attorneys, we have kind of 3 habits that we try to cultivate. And the habits are, number 1, to send out a lunch invitation every day. Number 2, to send a small gift like a book to one of our referral partners or one of our lawyer friends every day. And then number 3 is to post twice a week on LinkedIn. And the idea there is relationships are built over time. I never ask for referrals from these people. I go to lunch with someone and we just have great lunch. I don't say, who are you sending your criminal cases to? You should send case type X to me. We just have a great lunch. We just,
Mhm.
And when I don't send a gift as like a quid pro quo. I don't, somebody sends me a referral. I don't, send them a 10% value gift or something
Mhm.
I just randomly, I'll go through, I have a list of about 80 to 100 lawyers that I just really like. And when it's time, I look through it and look for somebody on that list and think, what book might they like? So I'll send them, a Seth Godin book or
Mhm.
just a book that I really enjoy. And the note will be simple. It'll just be like, hey, this is one of my favorite books. I hope you enjoy it. And then the LinkedIn posts, the idea there is not really to bring new people into my circle by posting on LinkedIn. So I might have more followers one week or, have a post that goes a little bit viral, and that's nice. That's cool. It doesn't
Mhm.
usually seem to affect my bottom line a ton, but it's nice for my ego. I like it. But the real purpose in the LinkedIn posts is that a lot of the people on my list of 100, a lot of those 80 to 100, a lot of those people go on LinkedIn pretty regularly.
Mhm.
And if they see a post that I've done that's done okay, that's got, 50 or 100 likes or something like that, that hopefully it just, oh yeah, Josh Barron. Yeah, I got to make sure. Oh yeah. And then when they get a call about a criminal case, I'm a little bit more top of mind so that they can think of me to send me a referral. So those are the habits. If I had to pick one of them, if I could only pick one of them, it'd be lunch, 100%, like
Mhm.
100%. The other 2 are sort of supplemental to the lunch, but to me, lunches, I look forward to them. They energize me. I had a great lunch yesterday with actually a former employee who's a super successful personal injury lawyer now. It fed my soul. I loved it so much. I would go to that lunch if he never sent me a referral for the rest of my life. Like I just loved it. And then on top of it, you know, people on that list send me amazing, amazing referrals. Pre-sold where meaning like they've already vouched for me. The person calls and goes like, where do I pay? It is so different than having a sales conversation with somebody who found me on Google or found, got a letter in the mail. And so, yeah, so those habits I think bring me joy for their own sake. And there's really no one on my lunch list that I wouldn't go to lunch with if they stopped sending me referrals. They're people I genuinely like. But then on top of that, they send me referrals. It's the highest value activity I can do for my firm. If I could go to 2 lunches every day, I would. I don't know how to do that. So I go to 10 a month is my goal.
That's super interesting, and I think the consistency piece is a big part of that. The fact that you don't focus on the outcome. If, like you said, referrals come, that's fantastic, but you enjoy building the relationship with these people and being top of mind and have an interest in the conversation, then just being consistent with it pays. In terms of the books, you mentioned Seth Godin. Are there any other authors or books that tend to be your go-to choices when you want to send somebody a gift?
Yeah, one I really like is How to Know a Person by David Brooks.
Mhm.
You can see some of my books right there behind me. There's some of Cal Newport's books that I really like. Like if I have a friend whose child is trying to figure out like what to major in college, I'll send them a book that he wrote called So Good They Can't Ignore You.
Mhm.
If they're frustrated with kind of like technology overload, I'll send them either Deep Work or A World Without Email, which is an amazing book just for the title. The book is really good too, but
Mhm.
the title is fun. So a lot of times they'll be kind of practical-ish business books that are kind of fun to read. Sometimes I'll send novels. Like there's one called The Storied Life of A.J. Fickrey, and I just adore that book. I just love
Mhm.
it. Another one that I'm like kind of embarrassed to love is called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I just love it. I just love it. Sometimes I'll send people The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis or The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I have a few that are kind of go-tos, but yeah, one of my friends knew that I liked that AJ Fikry book, and he was at a like a secondhand store, and he saw a first edition of that book, and he sent it to me, and I loved it. It meant a lot to me. Getting mail that's not a bill or doesn't require a ton of work from me is it's a nice experience. So you know,
Certainly.
it costs $10 or $15 to send something to somebody else. Like why wouldn't I do that? I would spend $200 to go to lunch with them easily. Why wouldn't I send them a $15 book?
Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about, and definitely, I think there is with AI and just the world that we are living, especially after COVID, sending something physical just gives a different layer to the relationship. And it's a little reminder, just like you're having lunch, that you thought about them, and it's not just another blank advertising piece that you got. Talk to me a little bit about the days when you did advertise on Google. What was the point? The early days, of course, were amazing when you had less competition on auction and it was profitable. But you said something when we were talking earlier that you had your partner manage the advertisement. And at one point, I think you tried to bring somebody from the outside and they didn't quite understand the business, and that caused friction. Do you want to talk about your experience when you did run ads with that, and what eventually caused you to pull the plug on that experiment?
Yeah, yeah. So initially, I was the person in house that managed the ads, and so like I would be doing casework, but I'd have like the AdWords dashboard open, and I would be watching money going out of our account,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me so anxious. It felt like this is like we're betting the law firm, we're betting our practice that this can work, and so it was causing me a ton of stress. So I was like, this isn't worth it. We shut it down. So that was our first attempt. Then my partner said, why don't I try it this time? So he would run it, and he was good at it, and he was obsessed with it. He thought about it, you know, way more than he thought about our cases like that. And I was happy for that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is an essential task. But he made funny mistakes. Like one time he accidentally turned on our, criminal defense ads worldwide. So we were getting calls from like Bosnia and that's just obviously like wasted money. Just like it was expensive, that it spent really fast. And it felt like it was going to work forever when we first started it. But then a couple of years passed and the margins went down, and we had no idea what else to do. We didn't have any other plans. And so we would try stuff, but it would never worked. Like we tried having, like in shopping baskets, this person sold us like photo ads that would be in shopping baskets at a
Mm-hmm.
supermarket. It wasn't super expensive, but I don't know why we did it. And I'm pretty sure no one ever called us from it. So we were
Mm-hmm.
kind of desperate to find something else, but just weren't sure we could. When he retired in 2017, so that's when I started really thinking seriously about referrals. And from 2017 to 2020, we were trying to consciously build referral relationships. But we couldn't envision turning off the ads because it was like is responsible for such a big percentage of our revenue. And so what forced us to finally shut them off was COVID. The courts
Mm-hmm.
closed. There were no cases being filed. We couldn't afford to keep advertising with no cases coming in. So we shut it off. And for about 3 months, like the phone kind of didn't ring, or it rang a lot less. And then the courts reopened, and like around June, and the phone started ringing and we weren't advertising. And so for a few months, we were just like, let's just see what happens. And then we got back to like serious volume without having to advertise. And we said, let's just never advertise again. And it's been transformative. I like it. It has made my life so much better, my practice so much better,
Mm-hmm.
the client experience better. It's just been amazing.
It's interesting because the way you described, earlier when you're talking to the clients, it has to be the right fit. You need to be able to connect with them, see the good in them, and sometimes it's not the right fit for whatever reason. With different marketing strategists, like you described the shopping basket, right? A lot of law firms, they have random acts of marketing. You can try different ideas, and some of them work, some of them don't. And the same goes with advertisement. For some practice area, it's not the best solution. And we've seen that as well, that if you are able to build your practice and sustain and succeed and grow your practice on a channel that brings the best type of clients that you're happy to work with, then you should absolutely go all in on that. No law firm should try to do the random acts of marketing just because somebody else is doing it. It's important to find what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I mean, so what's nice about Google Ads is it's immediate. Like you start paying them, you'll get calls that day. It's immediate. And with referrals, there's a little bit more patience where you have to kind of plant and then be patient and wait for it. You're going to be surprised, like, oh my goodness, this relationship has sent us, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fees this year. And this other one we really thought was going to be promising, but they haven't sent us a referral yet. It's that delay it takes some energy. Sometimes you have to have a plan to pay the bills in the meantime, but in the long term, I think the referrals are much more defensible with more healthy margins, with better clients. I mean, I'm obviously convinced.
Do you think your answer would change if you are to make a decision to whether it's rapidly to expand your practice or maybe open a new location? Would the Google Ads be your go-to initially to build up the practice until the referrals start kicking in?
Probably not, because I think ads are so addictive. It's dangerous.
Hmm.
So if somebody else said I'm going to, I wouldn't say like, hey, you're wrong. I know for sure you shouldn't do that. Try it, or whatever works for you. But personally, what I'd probably do is do something more of like the mailed letters, if that was an option,
Hmm.
or spending the money that I would have spent on those ads on events or gifts to get to know other lawyers in that jurisdiction. I just like if I again in months when I was spending $35,000 on Google Ads, I think that if I'd stopped and said, what if I took half of that and spent it on gifts for other attorneys, not super expensive ones, but just, thoughtful ones or experiences or events or like, hey, come to this basketball game. Or I think I would have been like, oh yeah, that's probably going to have a much better return. It's not going
Hmm.
to be quite as immediate, but it's going to have a much better return. So, there's other ways, getting, working sort of part-time for another practice or doing court hearings for them or, even getting a public defense contract or, you do have to have a way to just cash flow in the short term.
Hmm.
But I would I would use ads as a last resort. It's not wrong for everyone, but I would try other stuff probably first.
Do you think because you had that experience of running ads in the past and then coming to the conclusion, you changed the way you think about other marketing activities in terms of the KPIs and what's the cost of actually getting a client? The
Yes.
interesting thing that you just said that you're able to think about giving gifts and doing other activities because you have something to compare. And a lot of younger law firms and even just small and sometimes mid-sized law firms, they don't have the benchmark, so they can't quite plan about it thoughtfully.
Well, I mean, so I actually wrote a book called The Business of Criminal Law. And in that book, I really argue for Google Ads.
Hmm.
But I was arguing for Google Ads as an alternative to billboards and awareness advertising. And my pitch was most people are underestimating how long they need to do awareness ads, how much it will cost. So you kind of have to bet your law firm if you're going to do billboards.
Hmm.
But at the time I couldn't see an intentional way to build referral relationships.
Hmm.
And so now that I do see it, kind of the way I evaluate marketing opportunities is, I want to know what's the return in the short term, but I also want to know, is this platform or channel or distribution, is it defensible?
Hmm.
Meaning, do I have like unique advantage that I can maintain over time? I don't want to, if we're looking for a business model, something that we can repeat over and over again for years, that's going to, we do these activities and then we get this return and these clients and they, if we're looking for a repeatable business model, I don't want to have a business model that I can't win at. I want to fight a battle I can win at. And you
Hmm.
can't win at AdWords. It positions you on a menu where people can price compare directly. Everybody looks the same in a text ad. And if I write a better text ad than you can copy it tomorrow. There's just no moat. There's no defense. Whereas if I go to lunch with someone once a quarter for 5 years and they've sent me clients and I've taken great care of them, that's a relationship that I don't think that someone else can steal that relationship with an ad. I think it's very difficult. So like if we think about marketing channels as being awareness based, so TV ads, radio,
Hmm.
billboards, all that stuff, direct response, so direct mail, direct email, Google ads, and then relationship or referral based, the first and the last are defensible in my mind.
Hmm.
If you've been running billboards for 10 years in your state and you're one of the first people think of for certain problems, super expensive, takes a long time, You may not have the expertise to execute that campaign, but if you win it, it's defensible, meaning
Right.
somebody else has to spend a lot more money than what you're currently spending to try to displace you.
Mm-hmm.
Direct response is not defensible. Someone else can see your letter. Someone else can see your Google ads and reproduce them for free, basically. Someone else can, now that we have these, video generation tools, somebody can see your video on YouTube and reproduce probably a better quality version of it for almost free. So it's not very defensible. I want to win a defensible battle. So AdWords is not defensible. It might be a short-term strategy, but it's, in my mind, it's not a, you can subsist. It won't put you out of business, but you won't prosper because it's trying to take all the margins. But you can defend referral relationships, and you can defend awareness ads. I try to very carefully never do awareness ads just because it's not a skill that I have yet. It's not worth it, But again, when I'm evaluating a marketing opportunity, one of my big questions is this defensible? Can I be uniquely good at this? Not with everyone necessarily, but with the people. For me, 100 people. If 100 people think of me as their go-to referral for criminal cases, I have a thriving criminal business with really high margins.
That's interesting. Josh, what is the, whether it's marketing or anything else in your practice, what is the one big thing that you are focusing on actively all your attention this year?
I wish I could say one. I'm going to say two out of lack of discipline. I should say one. We actually had our, kind of leadership meeting yesterday, and we are slightly understaffed paralegal wise. And I think that's kind of restricting our growth. And so I need to hire that screening intake person. So I'm like in the process of writing the job description and finding the right platform to hire them and doing all that stuff. So that for the next 3 months, like hiring and training that person is job one. And then job two is my lunch calendar is kind of full. And so I have this thought, not super well proven, that if I spoke at more events that lawyers go to, that would lead to relationships and referrals. And I love public speaking, and I think I'm kind of good at it, but I will not do the outreach. Like I've proven to myself, I won't do the outreach. And so I have to figure out a way to delegate or automate the outreach or something, because I just won't send emails pitching myself to people. So those are kind of the two things, but in sequence. First, we've got to hire the intake person. Once that's done, then I can switch my focus to doing more speaking.
That's a good list. That's the next steps. Where people can find you online, Josh?
LinkedIn's the best. Josh Barron or Joshua Barron on LinkedIn, and try to post a couple times a week and about the business of law. So if you want to, get ideas for how to find 100 great criminal defense clients without advertising every year, follow my LinkedIn, and I will not charge you for it. It's free.
Great. Thank you, Josh. It's been a pleasure having you on today. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you too, Alex. You're great at this. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.